Yo, this is Mike, Ringmaster of the Imagination Circus, and I'm here to give you another episode of Why I Ship It. This time focusing on one Oroku Karai and Leonardo Hamato, or at least that's how I call them. So be it, and I love it. Alright, so let's talk about my experience with the TMNT before we get into talking about this ship as a whole. So, first of all, I grew up watching the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I, had VHS tapes from the original series, and I definitely got those from the library. I grew up watching the 2003 series. I loved the 2012 series throughout its run. I've seen the movies. I have those on DVD. I liked the Michael Bay produced films. They weren't great, but they weren't terrible, and they definitely weren't aimed at me specifically, but like I said, I didn't hate them. The new series I've seen part of, and it's pretty funny, but it's not really my thing. I'll definitely watch it and catch up at some point, but it's not my big thing. But I'm going to be focusing on two specifics series, and that's the 2012 series and the 2003 series. One, because the 2003 series is the series that introduced me to the ship, and then the 2012 series is the one that made me really want it, and then kind of ruined it for me in the weirdest way possible. And they had to ruin it by making that version of her Splinter's daughter. Seriously, why did they do that? And what the worst part, I figured that's where it was going to go. I figured that was where it was going to go. I knew, I saw the clues, I saw the hints, I felt that's where it was going, and I really, really hoped that wasn't the case. And then the season 1 finale for the series showed it to me, and it's like, oh, why you do that? Why you gonna ruin my... Look, I don't know. I just don't like the idea. I don't mind the idea that Splinter had a family. That is if you're gonna go with the human version. I'm not super happy with the idea that he's a Hamato Yoshi turned into a rat either, but I can live with that because it doesn't come up as often. I mean, it comes up way more than maybe in the original show, or at the very least, they take it way more seriously here. But gosh darn it, it bothers me, more when you bring too much focus into it, and having him have a human daughter definitely doesn't help. Okay, so the reason I ship these two, let's go back to my nostalgia a bit. As a kid, I grew up with the 2003 series, and while not necessarily my definitive versions of these characters, or at least the complete versions, they were the ones I'm probably most familiar with, or at least most passionate about. And these two had a very good chemistry when they were on screen together. They had a mutual respect, and, they had this star-crossed lovers thing. They're written with a mutual respect. Despite the fact that they're more or less mostly on opposite sides of the conflict, I think that's what partially makes them so interesting. They're kind of like the ninja version of Romeo and Juliet, which, considering I have so many problems with that story, it's a wonder I'm using that as an analogy, but it's the best example I can think of. Just two people on the side of two warring families at odds with each other, and yet they have a mutual respect. And the thing about the ships I have is that they're the ships that or at least the ships I've put on this show, because I do have ships where the characters actually do get together, or are definitely going to get together, but this show is about ships that are either never going to happen, or could have happened, or something like that, or they're not currently occurring. If someone comes out of nowhere and makes any of these ships happen, then alright, I'll be happy about it, but that's not really the point. Anyway, and with these two, it's definitely not going to happen, because no matter what version of them we're talking about, there's always something going on where that's keeping them together. Granted, we've only really had 2 series where they've actually interacted. I don't know about the original comics where Karai was originally created and is no way related to the Shredder. I'm kind of curious about where they came up with that idea. I like it, and I like that they've gone forward with it, but I do find it interesting that was not an original piece of the story. In the comics, I need to read those as well. I have not. I need to read both the original Mirage run and, of course, the IDW run, but I'll get to those. Don't you worry, I will. Even if I have to do it while I'm 87 on a respirator, I will eventually get to them. Getting off topic, bad habit of mine, but the point I'm trying to make is that, I don't know what their relationship, if any, is like in the comics, because these two are on opposite sides a majority of the time, or there's something keeping them apart, at least in the versions where we've seen them have that kind of chemistry, that's just unlikely to happen. Karai being a devout follower and adopted daughter of Orokusaki, aka Shirel, aka the one true shredder, bite me, and also, like, you know, Leonardo being, you know, a devoted student of Bushido and Splinter's son, and by extension, almost the grandson of Hamato Yoshi, so therefore he's not about to get on the good side, and these two are unwilling, at least in the 2003 series, to compromise their beliefs. And even though she had an inkling of good in her, and she had honor, Karai went and tried to avenge her father when he got imprisoned on an ice asteroid, because, you know, how you do. But the point is that it's just never going to work out. And I think that's the part, I think I do tend to ship characters more when they're unlikely to occur, because there's an innate, like, desire, you know. It's not as fun with characters you absolutely know are going to get together, but outside of that, there's just this thing. You see things that might not have been intended or whatever. In this case, who knows if they intended to write it where it came off slightly like they could be together, or they slightly could have that kind of feelings for each other if they really wanted to. I don't think it is in this case. I think that's very much me and anyone else who's basing this ship on this series in particular. That's like, we're definitely putting something there that's not. However, I don't think that's necessarily the case when it comes to the other main source for this ship, because this ship, at least when it comes to the 2003 series, is very much based on a mutual respect and a slightly similar personalities, and fighting styles even. Whereas another version that has similar basis but is a little bit more fun, shall we say, definitively speaking, the 2012 version, Karai definitely flirted with Leonardo, and Leonardo definitely flirted with her a little bit, and in her premiere episode during that first season, was fantastic, by the way. Yeah, she definitely asked some advice from April that definitely felt like he was trying to ask a girl out.
I met this girl.
Tell me everything.
Well, she's really cool. She's also a martial artist, and, she's in the Foot Clan.
Are you crazy?
April, she's different. She's...
In the Foot Clan.
Yeah, but she's...
In the Foot Clan!
Look, I know I shouldn't be hanging out with her.
Yeah, you got that right. 'Cause she's in the Foot Clan!
What are you doing? Who's she? Raph, Karai, Raph. We're out there risking our necks, and you're up here holding hands with the Foot.
I can explain.
I found you, turtles.
Oh, thank goodness.
And then, she's the Foot. And that is the version from the 2012 series. Now, the 2003 series is the version of the Turtles that really got me into the fandom and really introduced me to the characters and the one I grew up with. This series is one that I really enjoyed. It was something I watched actually all throughout high school and then beyond, because it ran for 5 years and it was supremely good. And I'm glad they didn't have it go on too long. They did what they wanted to do. They did some fun things for the final season, and it ended. And I'm okay with that. I think it worked, and I really enjoyed it. But the way that the relationship works with Leo and Karai, I think I'm going to start off with some simple facts. Going back to a video by one of my favorite YouTubers, Andre, the Black Nerd Comedy, he made a very good point in the very first video we ever did on this series a couple of years ago, where he pointed out they look like actual teenagers. You know what I mean?
And this is kind of an odd compliment, but I saw the design of the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and you know what? They actually look like teenagers. I mean, Mikey even has freckles. All the other Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles kind of look like adults. And if you're gonna try to tell me that the 2000s Beefcake Ninja Turtles were actually teenagers, then Master Splinter must be pumping them with bath salts and steroids. They should change the name of that show to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles **.
Yeah, exactly. They do. I love the character designs. Every one of the turtles. I think the only character design I'm not personally happy with, and I think a lot of other people weren't happy with, was Splinter. And it's not even his, like, pattern. The fur pattern, not super happy with that. I like the robe and the cane, but the pattern on the, but to be fair, him and Shredder are both really tall in this series. It's kind of, freaky how tall they are. Aren't Japanese men supposed to be really short? Speaking of which, I also wasn't happy that this version of Splinter was also Hamato Yoshi, but you know what? I can ignore that. It's not the biggest thing. What I didn't like, really disliked, was the fact that Karai was actually Miwa, aka Splinter's daughter. That kind of made it weird for me. I'm pretty sure when they learned about it that Mikey said that she's their sister, and while they're not related by blood or even the same species, that wouldn't bother me. Them being a different species would never bother me as much as incest. It's still sort of incest. It's not really incest. It never will be, but it still gives me out a little bit. That, and I just don't like it because it takes a certain element of their relationship away. This series gave me something that the other version had. Outside of their character designs looking fantastic next to each other and just looking fantastic overall, Karai's in particular is great because she's more punk rock, a little less serious. She's got a great sense of humor. I love the fact that she has this haircut where she's got the blonde in the back. It looks great. But the fact that it is that with her becoming, they're a little bit, outside of them being a little bit more flirty, which definitely works for me in so many ways, and they definitely did it on purpose this time. Clearly being aware of how much the, fandom had started to ship these two in the intervening years. By the time they got to this point, they clearly deliberately wrote it so that they flirted just a little bit more, just a little bit realistically, especially for teenagers. It's cute, and clearly, Leo clearly had a thing for Karai this time. As out front as you could be while trying to be secret about it when you're a teenager and you think you're cool, but you're not as cool as you think you are, and this version of Leo definitely is. But regardless, one thing I didn't like was the reveal that she was Miwa, because then we have, her character, became partially about taking out the Shredder, and it's not terrible, but the biggest thing is they didn't really use Karai as much once she turned into a good guy. She was off screen a lot more once she switched sides, and it just kind of ruined the character, and there wasn't that divide between them, so these two, if they wanted to, they could have written those two to actually be in a relationship this time. It would have been hella weird, but they still could have done it, but they didn't, and I don't know, that kind of ruined it for me. But regardless, this series added a little bit more of an actual, genuine romantic chemistry under the surface. It added some real flirting, and it definitely gave it to me. So these are the reasons why I ship these two. I hope... And, in the end, this is a ship I want to see, at some point, a single version. And if this happens in either version of the comics, I really don't think it happened in the Mirage run, but if it could still be the case, I could be totally wrong about that. It could definitely happen in the IDW run. I don't want to know. Nobody give me any spoilers, but I want to see one version. One version. It doesn't have to be permanent. It doesn't even have to be up front. But I want one version of the Turtles to have this relationship occur, have it be canon, and just see what it would actually be like. I don't care when it happens. I could be a 30-year-old man, and they could make it official. But I want to see it. I want to see it done at least once, and I want to see it done right. So, again, this is why I ship these two, and I don't know, if you guys ship, Leo and Karai, and if maybe you, because I don't feel like I did a really good job of explaining this, but if you guys think you ship it, if you ship this one, and you have better reasons for explaining it, please, give me those reasons. I'm really curious. I'm always open to hear other people's ideas, and I'm just, I like having conversations when these do occur because of these videos. So if you have any thoughts, please share them with me. But anyway, this is Mike, Ringmaster of the Imagination Circus, and if you feel so inclined, please come back in the future. I guarantee you'll enjoy something. Yeah, that's it. Something. Thank you.
So what's with the girl who tried to kill you?
She didn't try to kill me. She saved me.
She threw a knife at your head.
She threw a knife near my head.
She's in the Foot Clan.
Nobody's perfect.